This story has been in the news recently about a former Secret Service agent by the name of Paul Landis, who was present at the assassination of John Kennedy, and he has decided to come forward and break his silence and tell of the bullet he found. He says now that he found a bullet in the presidential limo, the bullet which is Commission Exhibit 399, the magic bullet, and that he put it on the president's stretcher, or the president's gurney, and he didn't tell anybody about it until he decided now that he wants to sell a book. Some people are excited about this because if true, it changes everything. If true, it means that the magic bullet theory, or the single bullet theory, is not true, and therefore it's a conspiracy. Now, this here is an illustration of the magic bullet theory, and the magic bullet theory, or single bullet theory, states that the CE 399 entered Kennedy's back, exited his throat, entered Connally's back, and caused Connally's wounds, and ended up in Connally's thigh, and then fell out of the stretcher, or the gurney that Connally was put on, and that's where it was found in Parkland Hospital. But Landis says that he found the bullet on top of the seat cushion where it meets the top of the trunk of the car. He found it there, and if he found it there, then that means it went into Kennedy's back, or his head, and came out somehow on its own and dropped on the car. And so that changes everything. That means the single bullet theory couldn't have happened because the bullet ended up in the wrong place. But anybody who knows anything already knows the magic bullet theory is impossible because it broke bones in John Connally's body. It broke a rib and it broke his wrist bone, bones of some substance, and any bullet that did that sort of damage would come out looking something like this and not in the relative pristine condition of CE 399. And there's other reasons too. The bullet CE 399 has lost very little material, and there were fragments in John Connally's body that, when added to CE 399, make the bullet heavier than it ever could be. So the magic bullet theory has been bullshit all along anyway, so this doesn't really change everything. It only would change everything if you believed the silly magic bullet theory, if you believed the official story. So I think it's a mistake to characterize this as changing everything. Now, when Hoover talked to LBJ shortly after the assassination about the magic bullet, his theory was that it had fallen out of President Kennedy's head.
The third shot is a complete bullet that wasn't shattered, and that rolled out of the president's head. It tore a large part of the president's head off, and in trying to massage his heart at the hospital, on the way to the hospital, they apparently loosened that, and it fell onto the stretcher, and we recovered that, and we have that, and we have the gun here also.
But this was not the planned interpretation for what was done, and this reveals that Hoover, although he knew that this was an inside job and he knew it was going to happen, he didn't know all the details of the plan because this was a CIA operation, and the CIA doesn't tell Hoover everything. The planned interpretation for CE 399 was that it had come from Kennedy's back, that it had been a underpowered bullet that hit Kennedy in the back but didn't penetrate very far and fell out. And here on the autopsy diagram we can see where this wound was marked by the doctor. And here in Kennedy's shirt we can see where the hole for this wound was made, and that matches up to the same position in the doctor's diagram. And here we have a document presented in a video recently by old man Jim Fetzer, a document from Thomas Evan Robinson, who was a mortician, and he also described the location of the wound on the back, 5 to 6 inches below the shoulder to the right of the spinal column. It's a virtual certainty, more than a virtual certainty. It's a certainty that this is where the wound was originally. And FBI agents O'Neill and Sibbert were present at the autopsy, and they submitted a report. And here they describe the wound in question. During the latter stages of this autopsy, Dr. Humes located an opening which appeared to be a bullet hole, which was below the shoulders and 2 inches to the right of the midline of the spinal column. This opening was probed by Dr. Humes with the finger, at which time it was determined that the trajectory of the missile entering at this point had entered at a downward position of 45 to 60 degrees. And that's a bit too steep to be a shot from the Texas School Book Depository. Further probing determined that the distance traveled by this missile was a short distance, inasmuch as the end of the opening could be felt with the finger. So this fits with the idea that CE 399, the magic bullet, didn't go through both men. It barely penetrated the back and fell out. And that's what the original interpretation, or that's what the conspiracy originally intended the interpretation to be. And the reason they did that was this proves a shot from behind, even though the president was actually shot from the front, and it also provides a bullet in good condition for ballistics comparison, proving that it came from Oswald's rifle. And I surmise that this wound was created by persons unknown in the Air Force One aft galley during the trip from Dallas back to Washington. I don't think that a gun was fired on Air Force One. I think somebody had a hammer and a special chisel of some sort, and they just whacked the chisel into JFK's back at what they thought was the appropriate spot and the appropriate angle. And while you can't go down to the hardware store and buy such a chisel, probably, it could have been easily welded together by somebody who could do welding. I'm sure that somebody like Roscoe White, who we know did welding, could have welded such a thing, or practically anybody else who knew how to do welding. So it's not like this is some high-tech device that we don't know whether or not they had. It would have been easy to weld such a thing together and to fake a hole in the president's back. So I surmise that this was the original plan. That is, that this bullet was supposed to be interpreted as having fallen out of President Kennedy's back at the position marked where the wound was made on Air Force One, and thus proving that the shots did come from behind and that they did come from Oswald's gun. And it could be that Paul Landis did put the bullet on the gurney, even though he did not find it in the car. It could be that it was his job to plant CE 399 so that it would be found by the doctors. And that is what he said he did. He said he put it on the gurney so that the doctors would find it. But I'm saying that he's lying about having found it in the car. Now, this original plan changed because John Connolly was shot at about frame 288 in the Zapruder film. And I actually think you can see Greer's gun here, just to the left of Kellerman's head. That looks like the barrel of the gun right there. I never noticed that before. But it was not planned to shoot John Connolly. And when Connolly got shot, that screwed up the timing of the shooting. Because Connolly got shot in frame 288, that meant that there was not enough time in the edited Zapruder film timing of things. There was not enough time for Oswald to have fired 2 shots from his rifle between the time that Connolly was shot in frame 288 and the time of the headshot in frame 313. That screwed up the original plan. And I surmise that the reason Connolly was shot was that he was not told that there would be any shooting coming inside the car from outside the car, and then when the throat shot came by his right ear, as you can see him react at the same time JFK does to the shot. He's not reacting to being shot, he's reacting to that bullet coming by his right ear. And the lapel flip is something else that I won't get into here. So when Connolly realized that shots were coming from outside the car into the car, something he didn't expect, he said, "My God, they're going to kill us all!" And he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get down, and not getting down put him in Greer's way. And that's why he got shot, because he was in the way and Greer had other stuff to take care of.
How did it happen they hit Connolly?
Connolly turned to the president when the first shot was fired, and I think in that turning it was where he got hit.
If he hadn't turned, he probably wouldn't have got hit.
I think that's very likely.
When the president got hit, the second one?
No, the president wasn't hit with the second one.
I see if Connolly hadn't been in his way.
Oh yes.
So the magic bullet theory, as it came to be, was not part of the original plan. The original plan was to alter the body in order to elicit an interpretation that CE 399 fell out of the back of the president, and therefore it proves the shots came from behind because it didn't penetrate, it didn't go through him, it just hit him in the back and fell out. And also, you've got a bullet in good condition for ballistics comparison. That was the original plan, but Connolly getting shot meant that they had to change the original plan. So the plan was changed to the magic bullet theory, with all of its impossibilities, and the wound was changed from the back to the neck in order to make the magic bullet theory seem possible. And Arlen Specter, who created the magic bullet theory, went on to become a senator and even thought that he could become president because he was a made man after all. He helped to murder JFK, and the regime that murdered JFK is the regime that still rules today. So it could be that Paul Landis is telling a half-truth here. Maybe he really did put the magic bullet on the gurney, but he didn't find it in the car. And his revelation doesn't change a damn thing. It doesn't change a damn thing because it's not the full truth. The full truth might help to change something, but he's not going to tell the full truth. He's going to sell a book.